In 1886, three researchers published a book containing 674 reports of the same thing. People perceiving loved ones at the exact moment of death, sometimes from hundreds of miles away. For 140 years, this data sat in archives. Everyone knew about it. Nobody ran the numbers. I did. 82% of verified cases cluster within 10 minutes of death. Chance predicts 4%, and there's a pattern in the data that nobody can explain. The book was called Phantasms of the Living. Edmund Gurney, Frederick Myers, Frank Podmore. 2 volumes. 702 cases of what they called telepathic impressions. Most involved death. A daughter wakes at 3 a.m. knowing her mother is gone. A soldier appears to his wife the moment artillery takes him. A brother feels his twin's heart stop from across the Atlantic. The researchers made 3 claims that have been repeated for over a century. Experiences cluster around the moment of death. Parents are more commonly the dying agent than children. Violent deaths produce stronger effects. Nobody ever tested these claims. They just kept citing them. The problem is that most cases say things like, around midnight, or that same evening. To calculate whether clustering exceeds chance, you need 2 independently documented times, when the experience happened and when the death happened. Of 674 cases, only 75 had both timestamps. Of those, only 31 met strict verification criteria. After manual audit for multi-day gaps and source reliability, 17 survived. 17 cases out of 674. A 97.5% exclusion rate. Here's the problem. The survivors cluster too tightly. Of those 17 cases, 14 reported experiencing the death at the exact same time it occurred. Within the precision of Victorian clocks, the numbers matched. Here's why that's strange. If these experiences were random, they'd be scattered across the night. Someone wakes up anxious at 2 a.m., their mother dies at 6 a.m., and later they remember the 2 a.m. thing and connect it. That's how coincidence works. So I calculated, if you're asleep for 8 hours and death can happen at any moment, what are the odds you'd wake up within 10 minutes of the actual death? About 4%, the actual number in the data, 82%. That's not a little higher than chance. That's 20 times higher. The math says this shouldn't cluster. It clusters anyway. Most paranormal research shows tiny effects, a few percentage points above chance, stuff you can argue about. This is 20x, in data that's been sitting in public archives for 140 years. But the timing isn't the strangest part. 4 of the 17 cases involved parents and children. I looked at which direction it flowed. When a parent was dying and their adult child perceived it from miles away, 4 cases, every single one. When a child was dying and their parent perceived it, 0. None. 4 to 0. Complete one-way traffic. The original researchers noticed this in 1886. They wrote that parents were more likely to be the ones perceived at death. Mothers specifically were 10 times more likely to be perceived than to perceive. But they never ran the actual numbers. They just noted it and moved on. Here's what makes this hard to dismiss. If these were just coincidences that people misremembered, the errors should go both ways. Sometimes a parent imagines their kid. Sometimes a kid imagines their parent. Random noise doesn't have a direction, but this does. Something flows from parent to child at death. Nothing flows back. 2 other findings should bother you. First, distance didn't matter. Cases from 500 miles away had perfect timing. One case where the person was in the same building had a 30-minute gap. If this were some kind of signal traveling through space, it should get weaker with distance. Your Wi-Fi gets worse in the basement. Radio stations fade when you drive away. But whatever this is, 500 miles worked better than the same building. Second, violent death showed no advantage. Everyone assumes a sudden traumatic death would produce a stronger effect. Researchers have claimed this for 140 years. My data doesn't support it. Expected deaths and sudden deaths clustered the same way. The violent death thing may have been an assumption that got passed down without anyone actually checking. I'm not claiming this proves anything supernatural. The data is historical. The sample is small. Selection bias in the original collection is possible, but the data has structure. The timing is too precise. It only flows one direction. Distance doesn't weaken it. Any explanation has to account for all three. I don't know what's causing it. This data has been sitting in public archives for 140 years. Everyone cited it. Nobody checked it. Now someone has. The anomaly is real. What made it is unknown.